how important is it to be consistent?
10.
10. That's what I
11.
figured. 11?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
11.
Quality, consistent content, man. That's the only way to guarantee success is sticking in it longer than everybody else is willing to stick in it.
All right. What's going on, everybody? And welcome to another episode of the Sean Lowery Show. And I have an incredible guest today. I'm so excited. His name is Travis Chappell, and he's a podcast consultant, and he's a professional connector. He's the founder of World Class Media, which is a full-cast podcast production company specializing in helping build entrepreneurs produce world-class podcasts that pay out. And in addition to being an entrepreneur, Travis has also been featured in Forbes magazine as a top 10 podcast that will change your life, right alongside podcasts that I love: Joe Rogan, Gary Vaynerchuk, Tim Ferriss, and 6 other amazing podcasters. He's the creator and the host of both the World Class, a podcast that reverse engineers what it takes to be world class at what you build, and build your network. That's a long intro. A top 25 podcast dedicated to helping entrepreneurs cultivate genuine relationships the right way. Here he is. So excited to have him on. Travis, how are you, man?
What's up, Sean? How's it going, man?
It's going great. It's going great. So yeah, I'm so excited to have you on. That's a great intro. Obviously, you've had a lot of success in podcasting. So yeah, what made you agree to come on my podcast?
Oh, bro, like I just like having conversations, man. Like I just like having conversations. So, yeah, I say yes to a lot of different shows. Just a lot of fun for me to be able to, kind of return the favor a little bit, because I know, when I started my show, anybody that I reached out to, I was hoping they were going to say yes. So
I
I
love
always
that.
try to say yes if I can make it happen.
I love that. And yeah, and when I make it big, I'll do the same thing. And I love talking too. And I actually I've definitely had some success in business as an entrepreneur, but as a podcaster, I'm still definitely new, and I'm getting started, and I'm finding my path, and I'm really excited to learn some things from you. So your podcast, the Build My Network, right? That it's the ultimate guide to leveraging a powerful network and influence in professional circles, adding value to lives around you. So it's about networking and connecting with other people. So this podcast and your goal here, does this advice apply to people who are looking to build podcasts, or just all entrepreneurs in general?
Yeah, sure. Anybody. Yeah. Networking. I mean, it's kind of interesting because it's a topic that can benefit just about anybody that listens to it, because everybody has to do it. If you want to see any sort of success in your life, and any sort of success that would be, above average, above mediocre type of success in your life, then networking is just a part of it, man. And you might not see it that way just because like networking is kind of a buzzword and some people don't classify what they do as networking, but like building relationships, building connections, like networking, whatever title you want to assign to it, it's a big part of becoming successful in anything that you do. And I think that if you're not doing it, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot just to see if you can walk. And you should try it. You should give it a shot sometime. You know what I mean? Like it just anything, bro. Like even if you just want to be a better golfer, you know what I mean? And like, let's say you have 2 guys, both of them want to be a better golfer. They shoot about the same right now. And let's say those 2 guys, like one of them, that he goes and he golfs once a week for the next year with a group of people that are not as good as he is.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to get better at golf? Probably, because he's golfing once a week, right? Like he's golfing continuously, and golf might be the actually exception to the rule, because you might have to go like 5 times a week to be better at golf because it's such a hard sport. But but anyway, the sentiment remains like he's still going to get better, but it's just going to be incremental growth because he's still going out getting the reps in. He's still going to be better than he was when he started, right?
Yeah.
We take the other guy and he goes golfing once a week with a group of people that are better than he is. Which of the 2 is going to be better at the end of the year? The person who went with the people who were better than he was once a week. Like it's just a side effect of improving on your network. Like you will improve if your network improves. It's just, you can't help it.
Yeah.
You can't help it.
Yeah, it's funny that now that I'm starting podcasting, I absolutely believe in that. And I've always understood the power of it. But it's funny, as an entrepreneur, like I have an e-commerce business. I have about 15 employees. They're printers, they're shippers, they're embroiderers. And I used to be, and only one time I joined a networking group here in Charleston, South Carolina, and it was like an entrepreneur group. And I actually found that I didn't get a lot of value of it. I'm like, wow, I spent a whole day here with these people, and I didn't learn anything new. And these connections aren't actually helping me in business because they weren't like in the same niche as me, or they weren't in the same industry. Like it was just a bunch of different business owners. And I've always kind of been like a hater on networking in a way, unless it like helps me. And it's just, I don't know. It's funny that I've always kind of been a hater on it as far as like, okay, how is this going to help me do my exact thing? I
Yeah.
totally understand it when it comes to networking, but like, even for just a specific entrepreneur, just like, it's mostly about being around people and like getting advice from them. You think?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and it's that exactly what you just said. I think is why a lot of people don't see value in it because they don't build the strategy beforehand. And if you just go out and just like connect with people for the sake
Yeah.
of connecting with
It's
people,
like a waste of
and that might
time.
be,
Yeah.
yeah, but
I
it may not
used
be
to think that.
beneficial, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but if you're seeking out a certain group of people because they've seen success in these areas that you want to see success in, and you can hang out with those people on a regular basis for the purpose of accountability or sharing ideas or like talking about what's been working for you and then hearing what's been working for them, and like you are open to hearing those types of things, and it's more of a collaborative effort that we're all working on each other's businesses together, like that is
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely agree. It's powerful. Uh, so your podcast, right? Build My Network, and then you started a new podcast, World Class. So I was curious, like, what was the like marketing strategy behind starting a second podcast?
Yeah, it was honestly just a fun thing for me.
Okay.
Just to be honest, man, like I like entrepreneurship and I love the space, and that's what the show ranks in. If you look at like the top charts on iTunes, we'll
Yeah.
be on top entrepreneurship charts. But that's really what that show is. It's an entrepreneurship show. It's a show for entrepreneurs, and so it kind of pigeonholed me from being able to talk to everybody that I wanted to talk to in terms
Mm,
of interviews.
gotcha.
Just because, like, I was still getting yeses, but there was just pushback. Like there was a hesitancy, like, oh, build your network. I'm not sure like what kind of value I could offer to your show, but I'm happy
Mm,
to come on, And these are people that are outside of the entrepreneurial space, like, like stand-up comics or, entertainers
gotcha.
or,
Gotcha.
athletes,
So world
people like that.
class gives you a broader range to get high performing people that aren't necessarily entrepreneurs.
In whatever industry they might be in. Yeah. Cause I'm a big
Gotcha.
fan of stand-up comedy and I'm a big fan of sports. And so I would really like to start getting into more of like entertainment style
Cool.
interviews with people like that and athletes and, entertainers and celebrities and stuff like that. But I think the Build Your Network brand was just kind of like not allowing me to have those types of
Okay.
conversations. So yeah, that was the reason for the new show.
Cool. Makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So, what would you say your strategy is to connect with all these amazing people? Because I mean, you have a very impressive list of people you've podcast with: Grant Cardone, Jack Canfield, the guy who wrote the Chicken Noodle Soup books. Like,
Yep.
there's a long list of them. Evan Carmichael. I mean, you can look you up and see all the amazing people. What would you say would be the strategy that gets you connected with these people?
It's all about credibility. It's all about credibility and authority, man. So whatever ways that you can raise your credibility and authority in the space, whatever space you're operating in. And it has to be real ways because real recognizes real.
Yeah.
And when you get around people like that, they can see through the BS.
Yeah.
Like they can see if you rented that Lamborghini in your Facebook ad. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
they've been around the block a few times, and you might be able to fool a lot of people who aren't real, but the
Yeah.
ones who are real, you won't be able to fool those people.
Yeah. So, I
So
mean, do you think it's about like views and followers and like big people want to go on other podcasts that have big audiences because they're
well,
big
that's
and
for sure. Yeah,
right?
that's 100%. If you can get a big audience, you can your reach in terms of who you can get on your show is almost limitless. Like my buddy Jordan Harbinger, he gets almost any guest that he really wants to. And because I mean, but his show gets 6 million downloads a month. Like he gets more distribution on his show than like USA Today or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so, why wouldn't they? Like if you're trying to sell a book or trying to do
Absolutely.
create any publicity around a new movie or something, like
Absolutely.
why wouldn't you go on that show? It touches way more lives
Absolutely.
than most other forms of traditional media. But so that's definitely one thing. But if you don't have the viewership, if you don't have the downloads and listenership, the only way to really hack it together is if you can take, like, your job as the host is to take away all of the guesswork out of the equation of somebody deciding whether or not they want to come on your show. So if you have a ton of downloads, that takes away the guesswork, right? It's like, hey, I get 1 million downloads a month. Okay, great. When do you want to record? You know what I mean? Like, not really a lot of guesswork there. They don't have to jump through a lot of hoops to figure out if it's worth their time, because busy people have a lot of demands on their time. And if they said yes to every single opportunity that came through the door, they would do nothing but podcast interviews. Like, they would do nothing but free phone calls and free virtual cups of coffee and free picking your brain sessions. Like, if they really just said yes to everything, they can't. It's physically impossible. Especially because they're busy and they have families and they're running businesses. Like, you have to be able to take the guesswork out of the equation. You have to be able to get it to where they're not going to see this request and then send it through their filter of three, gatekeepers and ask for all of these other external things.
Right.
So the way that I do that is to start getting quality guests on the first place. And so it's just kind of a snowball. It starts to pick up steam. The first one was difficult. The third one was difficult. The 10th one was still difficult, but a lot easier than the first and third one were. But now when it's like 35, 45, 55 people who are high caliber in this exact industry, it makes it a lot easier for me to reach out and get people to say yes for an interview on the show, because I've already had a laundry list of people that they're already familiar with, that they know, like, and trust. And so if they see 12 names of people that have already been on my show and I reach out, they're so much more likely to say yes at that point without having me jump through hoops, without asking me what my downloads are, without worrying about what any of that stuff is, because I'm taking the guesswork out of the equation. They don't have to wonder if going on Build Your Network is worth their time anymore, because they know if it was good enough for Grant Cardone and Ed Milet and Jack Canfield and John Maxwell, then it's good enough for me. And I can just say yes without having to worry about like all the other downloads.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it sounds fun to me, because I'm at that early stage where I'm building up that credibility. And basically it's just, everyone starts from zero. And I mean, if you're Joe Rogan and you're famous from a TV show, that's different. That's not zero. But most other people start from zero. And it's just, that's why, just like any business, it's a grind in the beginning. So it's just person by person, performance by performance, and you just have to be consistent, I would imagine. Now, I have a question. That I've just always thought this, and you're probably the right person to ask. I haven't thought about doing this, but is there anything in the industry where like people pay people to come on the show? I don't know if that's a weird question. That's a thing.
Yep. That definitely just depends on the show. Some people will never take payments for their show. Some people only take payments to be a guest on their show. Some people, it's a mix of the two, but yeah, it definitely exists.
Like, do maybe some podcasters go from 0 to 100 faster because they pay to have big guests on and can snowball that thing faster? Is that a thing? Like, 100%, man. Like I would pay to have Mark Cuban on my podcast. Like, what do I have to do? Just DM him and be like, yo, Mark Cuban, $5,000. You want to come on? I mean,
right. Yeah. Like that is, it's actually funny that we're talking about that, because that's something that my company is really working on in the background right now, that we're going to be launching in the next 3 to 6 months, is a platform to be able to book interviews like that. But the big thing is, the answer is yes, but there's not a way to do it directly at the moment, which is what we're kind of working on. But
that's interesting.
There is indirect ways to do it, which is kind of what I did, which is like finding high level people that are really well connected in the space you want to be, in the industry you want to be in, and join a mastermind or a high ticket paid program of theirs.
You did that with John Lee Dumas, right?
Yeah, John Lee Dumas. I did it with Cole Hatter. I did it with Joel Marion.
Okay.
Like, there's a few people.
So these guys,
you have to just make sure that they are well connected. Like, if you're going to spend a lot of money with somebody in hopes that they can open up some of their network to you, after you prove yourself to them, then they better be somebody that has a lot of connections.
Yeah, and these guys are offering that service, right? Like John Lee Dumas. It's a mastermind.
Yeah, sure. And there's no deliverable like, hey, join my mastermind and I'll introduce you to 30 people or anything like that, but you get the initial introduction with them. Like, he's going to come on for sure. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you jump in, like if you are like, hey, Travis, I hear you have this $12,000 mastermind, I'm in, and you pay me $12,000 to be a part of my mastermind. Like, I'm for sure going to come on your show, and I'm for sure going to make some intros for you. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But there's not really like a contract. It's not part of the deliverables.
Okay.
But like,
if you're like a babbling idiot and
but I'm going to right. Yeah, exactly. Like,
you're
if you
just like a racist asshole who's like a terrible person.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
not going to work. Yeah.
You still have to be a good person. You have to be competent in your craft and prove yourself to them, so that they know that you're actually worth opening up their Rolodex to. But those at least give you the opportunity to put yourself in the situation to capitalize on it.
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool. So I've never generated a penny for my podcast, and I'm not necessarily trying to. But I am interested in like the income element, and you can tell me as much as you're comfortable with, but it's like it's a full-time gig, right? And I was kind of interested in like the breakdown of like, is it advertising, or how do most average podcasters make an income? Is it
Yeah.
advertising?
So,
What is that?
so yeah, that'll probably be most of them that make an income. Most podcasters don't make an income. So the average podcaster would make $0.
Is that true? You
You know what I
think
mean? Yeah.
maybe
Oh
like
yeah,
zero
totally.
point one dollar
It's
to
like,
average out the people who do make money?
yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. No, it's like, I would say probably like 90% of podcasters don't make any money. Maybe 80%, I
I mean,
guess.
I
But
guess I'm one of them, but why do they do it?
yeah, I don't.
The
That's a
same
good
reason I
question.
am,
I
I
guess
guess.
passion stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
if it's like fires you up and you really want to do it, and you know, there's a lot of external reasons that are awesome for having a show. Like just this right now, the fact that me and you are on a conversation. Like if you would have just reached out and been like, "Hey man, can we hop on a 35-minute phone call sometime?" I'd be like,
Right.
"No,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, fair
I don't
enough.
have time to do that." But
Right.
you were like, "Hey, come on my podcast," and we're having a 35-minute conversation over a call, but it's for a specific purpose.
Right.
So like just building your network, increasing your knowledge base, perfecting your craft, those are all external reasons why I think podcasting is still a good idea, even if you never make a dime from it
Yeah.
or ever get a freaking download even.
Yeah.
But um but yeah, so the majority of people never will make money, but the majority of people who do make money would be through sponsorships. That's not how I do it. Just because I'm not a Jordan Harbinger show, I'm not a entrepreneur on fire. I don't get 3 million downloads a month or 1 million downloads a month for that
Okay.
illustration. So I just have to get a little bit more creative, and I need to worry about building up my fan base and my audience base one at a time, and then offering products and services and programs that benefit the people that are listening to my show in whatever capacity I can benefit them. And a lot of that is just spending time with them, getting to know them, and seeing where there's some crossover where I can offer a lot of help for for them, for their business, for
Okay.
their podcast, or whatever it may
And
be.
and you do like a mastermind type group?
Yeah. I have a 12K mastermind. It's called
Cool.
Cool People, Cool Places. We travel to cool places, and it's a group of cool people. So it's really simple to name it Cool People, Cool Places. But
That's awesome.
like our next trip isn't going to be. It was supposed to be in a few weeks, but obviously we had to
Right.
postpone it. But yeah, we're going to Costa Rica next. I literally rented out an entire resort there, like all inclusive resort. That's just going to be me and my mastermind, and then I'm flying in a few like speakers that are like influencer friends of mine to do some trainings and
Dang.
coachings and teachings on the inner workings of their businesses and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be like rest, relaxation, and fun, and hanging out, but it'll also be like, hey, we're getting some work done, getting some business done, getting some content created,
That's
and
awesome.
all that good stuff. So
Are,
it's a
mo-
mix of productivity and
are
fun.
most of the people that sign up aspiring podcasters, or just like aspiring entrepreneurs in general?
Yeah, for my group specifically, yeah, there's a lot of podcasters in
Okay.
there, just because that's what my specialty is.
Makes
But
sense.
but they're all different entrepreneurs. They're all entrepreneurs from different backgrounds who have added podcasting into their
Cool.
arsenal and want to
Cool.
learn how to create content better online, basically.
Awesome.
So yeah, so there's a large, we have a guy in there who owns a multi-7-figure insurance agency out of Dallas. They're in like 10 states. And then there's another guy that does multifamily investment syndications and raises, like he just closed on a $25 million apartment building out in the Midwest somewhere. And he raises money for those.
That's awesome.
We have other people in mortgage industry, and we have people online doing digital marketing and media. We have it's just all over the place.
That's so cool.
But the common denominator, the common thread, is that everybody's in there trying to learn how to create better content online.
Cool.
And
I mean,
monetize that.
yeah, honestly, man, congrats on that. All right, so yeah, I wanted to ask you. So, out of all the amazing people that you've interviewed, all right, whose interview went the least way that you would expect it to go? Like you had a certain expectation and it went way different than you expected.
Oh, that's a good question, man. I feel like I don't run into that very often, at least for
Really?
any of the bigger names. Yeah, because
Because you've listened to them before, so you probably have an
Yeah.
idea of a lot of their answers and stuff.
Yeah, it's because I prep a good amount, and
Right.
I try to do my best with the time that I'm given with them. And so I have a very clear direction of where I want to be headed most of the time. And if it doesn't go that way, it's because I haven't done my job as the interviewer
Okay.
and guiding the conversation to where I want it to go.
Okay.
As an interviewer, you have to be willing to take control. And one interview that I was particularly proud of where I did that was with Grant Cardone, because he's such a wild card
Yeah.
And exactly. He talks all the time. He talks over people that are trying to interview him. He talks over his interviewees when he interviews. You know what I'm saying? So like,
Whoever talks over someone's an asshole. No, what?
Yeah, no, he literally does that all the time.
Do that, yeah.
Yeah, and so I knew that going into it, and I had watched a few. I watched this one kid just get lit up by Grant, and it was for this guy's show, and he was like picking apart like what he was wearing and like saying he shouldn't have spent money on this and that, and I was just like, man, like Grant is just owning this conversation when it's not even his own show.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing that I had to do from the beginning, was just kind of like set the tone.
You like wrangled him, you kept him in control.
Yeah, you just have to set the tone from the very beginning. And it's not like I like got him or like I got one over on him. Like it's nothing like that. It's just
you just did a good job.
Well, he understands power dynamics. Like he understands that like, okay, this is somebody that takes this very seriously. So I'm going to follow his lead. And that's totally, it's not like it's a like an alpha thing or like it made him less than or anything like that. He was just like, hey, this is somebody who's a professional who wants to actually guide the conversation. So I'm going to let him do that, you know. And it changed, the entire conversation changed from like minute one, because like he was like doing all this stuff and talking over me and being all joking in the first like 30 seconds to like a minute and a half. And I didn't respond. And I just like went directly into what I had for him. And you see it in the video, like you see like a time in the first minute or so of the conversation where he actually like stops messing around and gets super serious and focuses in on the conversation. And from there we had a really great talk. And I usually don't say this kind of stuff just because I'm just not that kind of person, but I genuinely think it's one of the best interviews that I've heard listening back to it that somebody else has done with Grant, because he's such a bulldozer in most conversations. And it's just rare to have somebody that will come in and actually take control of the conversation, because they're so afraid of stepping on his toes, you know? So they just don't do it.
Cool. So that's been it seems like that's been your favorite podcast that you've had. Just because
it's one of the ones. Yeah, it's one of the ones that I'm most proud of because of that, because there's so many people that interview him and do a really poor job. So I felt that I prepped how I needed to prep, and I felt like I delivered what I wanted to get out of the conversation.
That's awesome.
And left unscathed. So that was one that I was happier with the content that we got from.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I was reading up on you a little bit, and one of the things that, this is a little off the podcasting topic, that I love that I saw earlier in your career was that you started by going door-to-door sales.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So like 7 years.
You did it for 7 years.
Yeah.
I did that too, actually. I did it in college. I did it for like 2 summers. And
nice. So you did summer programs?
Yeah, summer programs. And I was going door to door, looking to get like painting estimates for people. And
I heard about that one.
Yeah. Like, you have any like funny stories from that? Because first of all, for an entrepreneur, any entrepreneur, like I think going door to door is just a great foundation just for learning about rejection, keeping a positive attitude.
Sales, man, emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
Like being able to tell if somebody's actually interested when they're, regardless of what they're telling you or whatever, you know, like that kind of stuff is invaluable for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any like funny stories?
Oh, totally, man. Yeah. I got loads of door-to-door stories. So one that I bring up kind of frequently because I do a talk on like how to handle rejection. And this is from like very, very early on in my door-to-door career. One of the ways that I dealt with rejection in door-to-door was like me and my buddies would just kind of make it a game. And if somebody was just being a total dick, right? Like, there's a difference between somebody like rejecting my product and somebody being an asshole. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So with the assholes, we would just mess around with them because it was just like, hey, you're being an asshole. So I'm going to like try to waste as much of your time as possible. And so there's this one time where we were knocking, it was literally like right when I first started. And I was knocking with my accountability partner, John, and we were both hitting different sides of the street. And I got in a house and got a sale. And so by the time I got out, he was already finished up with the rest of the block. And so we went up and met up. And while I was in that house, the customer that I just sold told me, hey, don't knock on that door across the street because that guy is like really old and he hates when people like bug him and talk to him, whatever. And I was like, I think my buddy may have already knocked on that door because he's down there and that was his side. So, you know, like it is what it is, I guess. And so I got to the end of the street, and sure enough, before I could even ask him, my friend was like, bro, this guy was insane, like out of his mind, like came out and just started yelling at me immediately. And just like, he was just one of those guys that just did not want you knocking on his door. So John like knocked the door, and This guy came out, yelled at him for a couple minutes, and threatened to call the cops and all that kind of stuff. And so we ended up leaving. And then we were back in the same neighborhood, probably like maybe, I don't know, maybe 3-4 days later. And my buddy was like, bro, you should go knock on that door. and now I probably wouldn't do it, but back then it was like, all right, sure, that seems fun, you know. So we go back to the door, and the neighborhood was technically a no soliciting neighborhood. So like none of the doors themselves actually said no soliciting, but like the neighborhood was supposedly no soliciting, you know. But like you know, as a door-to-door,
you ignore
guy,
that.
like,
You ignore that.
Yeah, like, yeah, exactly. Like I've gotten plenty of sales.
I didn't know.
Yeah. I've made a lot of money on no soliciting doors, so like I still knock them, you know. But anyway, so we parked like right by the sign that says no soliciting, and like walk up to this guy's house. And sure enough, bro, like he was furious. And John came with me, and I told him, I was like, bro, you just need to stay in the car. He's going to recognize you. He's like, no, he's old. He won't remember me. So he opens the door, and first thing out of his mouth was, he was accusing me of pounding on the door, which was absolutely not true. Like I was not trying to like stir anything up from the beginning. It was literally just a knock. And he was like, he came out, the first thing he said was yell at me for how loudly I pounded on the door. And then I was just, before I could even say something, he turns and sees my buddy, and he was like, and then you were just here last week, and just started yelling at him. And then by the end of the conversation, the very brief conversation, he told us that he was going to kick us from here to hell, and was like we turned around to leave, and he was following us like off of his doorstep and onto the sidewalk to get in the car. So yeah, man, lots of fun. Lots of funny stories.
It's a fun job to do with friends. One time the guy almost like arrested us because he thought there was robberies in the neighborhood, I guess, and he thought we were like casing their houses, and the police came. Yeah. And we were just like, we're not gonna
I don't know how many times I talked to the police, bro.
Yeah.
And every time.
This one we weren't going to run because we weren't doing anything wrong, and we just figured it'd be better not to run because that would look guilty, and we weren't robbing anyone. But
exactly. Yeah, so many times the police were called, bro, and it was just like, you could tell that they were irritated that they got called. They were like, oh, what are you doing? Why are you here? It's just like, oh, we're you know, we sell stuff door to door.
Yeah. I quit my first sales job, my real sales job, early in my career, but I got hired because in the interview I said I did door to door sales. And it's just anyone who is like young and trying to think about sales and wants to be an entrepreneur, I feel like door to door just really gives you grit. And I feel like a lot of door to door people end up being successful. And it's just like, I think it's a great tip for people.
It's funny. There's a common denominator with a lot of successful people that I talk to, that they started in either like door to door or telemarketing or network marketing. Right. One of the three things.
High rejection things.
Right. Where you just have to get in and learn and figure shit out, you know?
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah. So, next thing I have is I have a list of traits, and I want you to, on a scale from 1 to 10, tell me how important these are you think to be a successful podcaster. Like, for example, I'll just tell you number 1. It's how important is it to have a clear niche? And I have a list of these things, and I want you to kind of tell me, like, 1 is it's not that important, 10, it's very important. And these are actually things like I'm thinking about, and I think that anyone wants to get in podcasting wants to consider. So,
cool.
Right,
let's do
ready?
It.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Number 1, how important do you think it is to have a clearly defined niche?
Yeah, it's super important. It's everything.
Good number.
You can't be
10.
You can't be Joe Rogan, you know. So I would have to say 10 with, and probably this is going to be a caveat that would be for all of these answers. The real caveat is it depends on your goal, because like if you just want to like talk shit with a couple of friends and drink some beer every Friday night and have a reason to get together and record a podcast, then do it. Like, don't worry about it. But if you're talking about somebody that wants to build a successful business off of the back of a podcast and a real audience, you have to niche. 10.
Okay. 10. All right. And you can take out that caveat. This is for people who want to build it.
For this specific purpose.
For the specific purpose, yes. Next one, how important is it to have a good sounding voice?
3.
2. That's good. Yeah. That's good, because I think I have a bad voice.
I listened like some of my favorite podcasters, and hopefully they don't listen to this because they would probably be mad at me, but some of my favorite podcasters, I took solace in the fact that I was like, man, if these people can have successful shows, like they don't have radio voices, you know what I'm saying? Like they would not like they would not have made it in old school radio because they definitely don't have the voice for it.
Yeah.
But they have very, very large audiences and make millions and millions of dollars doing it. So yeah, your voice is literally nothing.
Three. All right.
3, yeah, maybe.
How important is it to be consistent?
10.
10. That's what I
11.
figured. 11?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing it every week for 40 weeks in a row, and because I just known from the beginning that there's other consistency is key. So
Quality, consistent content, man. That's the only way to guarantee success is sticking in it longer than everybody else is willing to stick in it.
All right, let's go. How important is it, 1 to 10, to be funny?
It's not important.
Okay.
No, it's not important. I think it's helpful. I don't think it's crucial. You know what I mean? Like
You got a number?
I would say a 5.
Okay.
Yeah,
more important than your voice. Okay.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, your personality and the way that you react and interact as a host is way more important than like how your voice actually sounds.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Next one. How important is the equipment that you have?
1, 2. Like as long as you have something better than your built-in audio on your laptop, then you're gonna be total. Like this mic setup, bro. Like I've had this from the very beginning. This is a $60 microphone. It plugs directly into my computer. I don't need the audio interface. After 300 something episodes, I finally upgraded my studio setup. But obviously it's in my studio and we're quarantined right now. So This is my home setup, but it's literally a $60 microphone. This is a $2 pop filter. And then I have a boom arm that usually goes on my desk when I'm in my home office. And that was like $12. Okay. So my entire setup for almost 3 years was $83 on Amazon. So if you have something, it's better than nothing. But you don't have to go spend $3,000 on an audio setup and when you get started. That's just
I've been seeing your content about that, and I thought that you were going to say 1 for that. And I saw your content about like people spend 2 years looking up for on Amazon to try to get the right mic, and they never start their podcast. And I just laugh because that person is obviously not ready to start it. That's just such like a out. Like I can't start yet. I don't have a microphone.
Yep.
All right. How important is the podcast art or the thumbnail image?
I would say a solid 7. It's not going to be the thing that like gets you your 1 million downloads, but I do think it's important to let people know that you didn't like. You want to give people the feeling that you didn't just like jimmy this together last night at midnight. You know, you want to give the feeling that this is a really professional thing that I'm taking really seriously. And so if you have really crappy artwork, like I've been on shows where people have artwork that looks like it was made in like Microsoft clip art, you know what I mean? Where it's just like a picture of them that they just took like this. And then they just like added Times New Roman font on it that's black and not like it looks so horrible. And it's just like, this just looks like you don't care. It just looks like you don't give a shit about this entire thing, which why should I give a shit about it if you don't even, you know what I mean? Like, so, but I don't think it's the most important thing.
Okay. You said like 6 or 7?
Yeah, it's solid 7, I would say. Yeah.
All right. How important is the introduction? Like a intro, like a song or a welcome thing?
Yeah, I'd put the intro up at a 10.
10? Wow.
Yeah, it's just like door to door, bro, and you'll understand this better than most people. When I coach people on intros, I say the same thing that I said to my door to door reps. Like, you have 10 seconds to capture somebody's attention and convince them to listen to you for the next minute, and then you have the next minute to convince them to listen to you for the next half hour. So it better be good. You know,
do you like to take a hot clip from the podcast and put it like before the song or something? I know some people do that.
Yeah, some people do it. I don't. I think that honestly, I think it's too much work and it's not worth it. Like,
not worth it.
Because you have to dig through your content. You have to be able to find something that's short enough to stand still on its own without context. So you can't put a minute clip at the beginning. Like, it has to be like 10 to 15 seconds. And if it's 10 to 15 seconds, it has to be a statement that makes sense without having heard the previous conversation leading up to that statement.
Okay.
So
when acceptable,
it just is a little bit more difficult.
But okay, 10 for the introduction. That's higher than I thought for that one. So that's good info. That's awesome, man. I mean, pretty much my last thing, open-ended. You can take it wherever you want. It's just like, what's something different that's been like the number one thing on your mind lately? I guess you've been quarantined like everyone else.
Yeah. In terms of like just a big concept, I think risk versus reward has been on my mind a lot recently. I kind of alluded to it earlier in this conversation that we're building out something really cool. And it's going to cost me a lot of money to build it out. And I went back and forth on it for a few months. And I just recently in the last week or so decided that I'm going to go ahead and go for it. And so that's been something that I've been thinking about lately is a lot about what does failure actually mean? You know what I mean? And I think people totally overestimate the effects that failing on something has on their life. And so I try to underestimate. I try to just make it seem like it's absolutely nothing. You know, like even if I spend $100K on this new project that I'm doing, you know, and I totally lost all of it. At the end of the day, like if I bankrupted myself trying to build this new thing, like I could go out next month and get a sales job and make 300K this year. It just selling something. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, like, you know, like it's just never that big of a deal. People just, they just dramatize what failure is, and it prevents them from ever taking any risk toward accomplishing something that could be amazing if they would just take the risk, but they just won't do it because they're afraid of like being embarrassed or something. Like it just doesn't compute to me. So that's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. And that we really like the ultimate asset we have is time. It's not money. And so if you're looking at an investment and it's a risk, but the reward is huge, take the risk every once in a while, and be okay with the fact that it might fail, because like at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal.
That's
you know
awesome.
What I mean? Like just
that's
do something
awesome.
else.
Yeah, it's a great answer, man. And that's something that you definitely have to sit around and ponder and remind yourself over and over, because a lot of people will just get that fear, then they'll get like motivated for a second, then they'll get the fear again, and eventually the fear wins. So that's a great answer. That's a good thing to be pondering. And yeah, man, this has been great. I really appreciate you coming on. Where can everyone find you? What do you want them to do? Where do they find you? Subscribe?
Yeah, head over to travischappell.com. You can find anything and everything I do, both of my podcasts, all my social links. That's Travis Chappell, 2 P's, 2 L's, travischappell.com.
It's Chappell? I was listening.
Chappell.
I was listening. I said I'm going to say this name right, and I listened to I think the Shark Tank thing on your Kevin Harrington. He said he said
it wrong too. Yeah, he said it wrong.
See, I was not going to get it wrong. I figured he got it right. So all right, it's Chappell.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, Travis Chappell. I listened. I was like, I'm going to get it right. I listened to a couple different things, and I heard it both ways.
No, you're good. Right. Yeah, like a wedding chapel. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he said Chappell too, and I was just like,
I
was like, Kevin, can you re-record this? And but he's so freaking busy. I was lucky he took the time to do the first recording.
Yeah, that was cool, dude. I appreciate it so much. Like you said, you are been from nothing and grew yourself up, and you are helping young podcasters. And dude, I appreciate that so much. And I hope to be in your position one day where I can help others. And I think this has been a great conversation. I learned a lot. And
yeah, man, appreciate you for having me on, bro. And you're already doing it. You're already helping out people. You know what I mean? You don't have to have a million downloads to help people. Like you're already helping out people, and you're doing it for free. And that's something to be said in and of itself, bro. So congrats on that.
Sure. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Peace out.